Want to speak real English from your first lesson? Sign up for your free lifetime account at EnglishClass101.com.
Happy New Year! Let's talk about present perfect tense. Hi everybody, welcome back to Ask Alicia, the weekly series where you ask me questions and I answer them. Maybe. As always, remember, you can submit your questions to me at EnglishClass101.com/ask-Alicia. First question. This question comes from Zera. Hi Alicia, I have a question about present perfect tense. In my native language, there isn't a tense called present perfect tense. I am confused because I don't know the differences between present perfect tense and simple past tense well. Let's begin with an in-depth explanation of these two grammar points and the differences between them. Okay. To begin, let's begin with the simple timeline here. We have the past, now, which is the star on the timeline, and the future. So we're going to focus on the past and the now points. Let's focus on those. So first, let's look at the simple past tense. We use the simple past tense for actions which started and ended in the past. So at a point in time before the present, a point in time before now, in other words. On our timeline then, let's imagine there are 2 points, a start point and an end point for that action. Okay, so here I've made a start point and an end point on the timeline. So in the past, you can see there are 2 points. The start and the end of the action both are in the past. You'll see both of them are in the past. That's the first point about the simple past tense. Also, these are for actions that we did at a specific point in time. We can assign a specific point in time to these actions. For example, this morning, last year, last week, yesterday. There's a specific point in time we can attach to these actions. Okay, so let's talk now about the present perfect tense. Present perfect tense has a couple of different uses. The first use of present perfect tense I want to explain is using the grammar point to explain a life experience. Let's take a look at how visually this is different from the simple past tense. So now on the timeline in blue, you can see this sort of dotted line that I made with a question mark. So the dotted line begins in the past and it ends now. It ends at the current point in time. This is because we use present perfect tense to talk about things that happened at some point in the past, but the specific point is unimportant or unknown. We don't need to explain when the action happened. We only want to state we have had or have not had that experience. So we use this when we want to talk about our life experiences. For example, travel experience or work experience. Like, I have never been to France, or I've eaten pho. My parents have never been outside the country, for example. We use this to talk about life experience, but we don't include a specific point in time when we talk about these experiences. It's just some time before the present. The specific point in time is not important in that sentence. You might follow up this sentence with a specific point in time, in which case you use simple past. So let's talk about one more use of the present perfect tense. This is the one we use with the words for and since, and we can also use the continuous tense with this use. The black line on the timeline here shows an action that started in the past and continues to the present, or it's an effect of an action that continues to the present. We use this to talk about our studies, for example, or the places where we live. Like, I have been studying English for 3 years, or I have lived in Brazil for 10 years, for example. So remember that we use the words for and since along with this form of the present perfect tense. We use for before a length of time, like I've studied for 3 years, I've lived in Brazil for 5 years, and we use since before a period of time. So I've been studying since 2009, or I've lived here since 2013, for example. So please keep this in mind. The present perfect tense is used for actions that started in the past and continue to the present. Simple past tense is used for actions which started and ended in the past. Next question. This question comes from Maxime. Hi Maxime. What's the difference between 1 year and a year? For example, I've lived here for a year, or I've lived here for 1 year. In this sentence, no difference, honestly. When you're talking about time periods, a year and 1 year, a minute, 1 minute, they don't mean anything different. They mean the same thing. Thanks for the question, though. Next question. Next question comes from Hwang Jang-ik. I'm very sorry. Which one is correct? I work out for 1 to 2 hours a day. I work out for 1 or 2 hours a day. I drink coffee 2 to 3 times a day. I drink coffee 2 or 3 times a day. Both of these are correct, actually. In this case, there are very, very small differences between these. 1 to 2 hours a day means between 1 and 2 hours. If you say, I work out for 1 or 2 hours a day, it means it's determined, like 1 hour only for a workout or 2 hours only for a workout. So the difference here is, are you deciding 1 hour or 2 cups of coffee or 3 cups of coffee? Or is it between those two amounts? So using 1 to 2 or 2 to 3 means between those two amounts. Using or shows it's either A or B, but not between those two. This is the difference between to and or. Next question. Next question comes from Huang Seina. Huang Saina. I'm very sorry. I've never been to Japan. I've never been to Japan before. I've never eaten horse. I've never eaten horse before. My question is, if you put before at the end of those sentences, does it mean you are in Japan right now or you are eating horse right now? No, not necessarily. Think of before at the end of the sentence as before now. I've never eaten horse before now, in other words. You could use this just before you eat horse or just before you go to Japan, if you like, as an emphasis phrase. But it doesn't necessarily mean that you are in Japan now or that you're eating horse now. You could use it in that way, sure, but it doesn't necessarily mean it. If you'd like to emphasize it, like if you're about to eat horse, for example, and you say, I've never eaten horse before, you could show your interest or perhaps to show maybe some anxiety or nervous feelings about what you're about to do. But no, it does not necessarily mean you are in that place. Like, for example, you could just be having a conversation. Have you eaten horse before? No, I've never eaten horse before. It could just be a conversation about it. But really, before just means before now. Next question. Next question comes from Rashkesh. I'm sorry. Where do we use wanna and gonna and how? This question is about the casual contracted forms of want to and going to. So want to becomes wanna, going to becomes gonna in casual speech. We use them in exactly the same way we would use I want to, I'm going to, he wants to, she wants to, he's going to, she's going to. We use them in exactly the same way, which means we use them in casual situations, like I want to take a day off, or I'm going to go to the beach this weekend, or do you want to see a movie tonight? We use them in exactly the same way. We use want to and going to, but we use them in speech. Typically, we don't write these unless we're writing very casual messages, like text messages to our friends or something. Next question. Next question comes from Garrison Silva. Hey again, Garrison. When can I use the expression take for granted? Take for granted. This is an expression which we typically use in the negative, like don't take something for granted. Don't take blah 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 for granted. It means don't forget to appreciate this thing or this person. So for example, don't take your parents for granted, or don't take this opportunity for granted. These expressions mean don't forget to appreciate these things, or don't just disregard your parents, or don't disregard this opportunity. Recognize the importance of something. So if you are given a good opportunity, for example, or someone gives you good advice, or a very nice gift perhaps, we would typically use this with the negative. Don't take something for granted. Meaning don't forget to show your appreciation for that thing or for that person. Next question. Next question comes from Daniel Silvero. Hi, Daniel. Daniel asks, what is the difference between wish and desire? Greetings from Paraguay. Hey. What is the difference between wish and desire? Wish is used to express a want, when you want something that is different from the present situation. So we often use it with I wish I were, or I wish I could. Something we want or or an ability we want, but that we do not have now. Something for the future. So I wish I could speak 7 languages, or I wish I had $1 million, or I wish I were taking more time off every week, for example. Something that is different from the present condition, the present situation. We use wish, or I wish you would call me, for example. I wish you would, or I wish you could, to express something that is not happening now. Desire, on the other hand, desire tends to be used more formally, and it also can carry more romantic nuances. It's not used as much conversationally as the word wish is. Wish is used to express wants, things that we want that are not true now. Desire is used more in romantic situations, like to desire another person, or he desired more of her time, for example, but it sounds unnecessarily formal, I feel. You might use it in a more formal, like a business context, like our client desires more information about the situation. That could be a different use of the word desire, but in general, it sounds a bit more formal and a bit more romantically charged at times, depending on the situation when it's used. If you're talking about a person as well, like if you say, for example, I desire you, it sounds actually quite odd, at least in American English. If you want to use the word desire, I think in romantic situations, it might be applied in a phrase like, he was filled with desire, or she was filled with desire, used more as a noun than as a verb. So I would recommend not using desire so much to talk about your wants, as it can sound a little bit too formal or can give perhaps the wrong nuance to the situation. But wish is used to express a hope for something or wanting something that is different from the present situation. So I hope that helps. Next question from Han Yon Hee. Han Yon Hee? Very sorry. Hey Alicia, what's the difference between maybe, probably, perhaps, and possibly? Great question. Maybe, probably, perhaps, possibly. Okay, maybe, probably, perhaps, and possibly. These are all adverbs. They have the same grammatical function. Maybe, probably, perhaps, and possibly. Maybe and perhaps are very closely related. Maybe and perhaps they have the same meaning, but just different levels of formality. Maybe is like the lower level, the more casual version of the word perhaps. So maybe I'll go to the beach this weekend, and perhaps I'll go to the beach this weekend. They have really the same meaning, but perhaps sounds more formal. Probably, however, is different. Probably expresses a higher level of possibility than the other words on this list. I'll probably go to the beach this weekend is like a 75 to 80% chance the speaker is going to go to the beach this weekend. Possibly, however, possibly has more of a nuance of just that something can be done. It is possible to do something. We use possibly more in requests. Like, could you possibly blah, blah, blah for me? Could you possibly send me this file? Possibly sounds a little too formal for casual conversations and invitations. But if you're using it at work, for example, could you possibly meet me later this week? Instead of could you maybe meet me? So the difference between maybe and possibly and perhaps there, possible has that root, yeah? Possible, able to. So maybe and perhaps don't have that nuance. Possibly sounds like, is it possible? Are you able to do this thing? Maybe and perhaps don't contain that nuance. So to recap, maybe and perhaps are used to express the same thing, a chance of something happening. Perhaps is more formal. Possibly is used in a similar way, however, it refers more to simple possibility than are you able to do that thing. Probably expresses a high chance of something. Thanks so much for all your questions. Remember, you can submit to me at englishclass101.com/ask-Alicia. Thanks very much for watching this episode of Ask Alicia. I will see you again next week. Bye-bye. Happy New Year, and I hope that your studies continue well.